Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jersey Comic Crew. On today's episode, we are talking Loki episode 3, our review and reaction. Come on inside.
What's up, everybody? We're the Jersey Comic Crew. Today we're talking Loki. That's right, Loki episode 3, Lamentis. And now, guys, before we begin our review and reaction of the episode, make sure you'll hit that like button, that subscribe, make a comment down below, all that YouTube stuff that we need to keep growing, to keep making more content for you. And yes, this is your spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the major events that happen in the episode, and we're going to spoil what happens. So if you haven't watched it, please pause this and come back after you've already watched it. Or if you don't care about spoilers, continue. So, Chris, this episode, was a lot of fun. Different kind of pace here. We get the two variant Lokis, if you will, stuck together, right? Loki went through the magic trapdoor that the other Loki did, and we see her plan, I guess, was like have bombs everywhere, get the TVA distracted, so she could go in and maybe kill the timekeepers. That kind of seems like that was her plan. And then the whole rest of this episode, Loki tries to save them. He uses the panel, if you will. They get stuck in an apocalyptic event. The panel breaks, and now the two of them are trying their best way to get out of that apocalypse alive. For me personally, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a lot of fun seeing the back and forth. Did raise some questions, but it wasn't as strong as the first two episodes for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Rob. It's definitely weird when you're kind of like all entrenched in this Mobius and Loki storyline, and then he's just not there for an episode. You're like, wait, where'd he go? Is he okay? Like, I kind of want Mobius back. Like, it's just like one of those where he clearly is missed because Owen Wilson's so good. But I did like to kind of get into some of the nitty gritty with the main characters. Right, we have Loki and this Loki variant that is. She has a plan. We don't know what the full plan is. Like you said, she goes into the TVA, but what was her main goal? She was clearly going after the timekeepers, right?
I think
so. Was her plan really just to fight her way through everybody and hopefully not get hit by one of those sticks? You know what I mean? Because her powers did not work in there.
So for me, I think what made this episode weaker compared to the other two is because we didn't get any resolution to Sylvie's plan, which we thought we would get in this plan. When we learned about the variant Loki Sylvie in this episode, right, we realized that she's more of a brute compared to our Loki, right? And like she's running around and like her solution is to cut things down and just mow through them. But she was kind of built up to have like this big grandiose scheme, right? She's doing all this stuff for a reason. And it was kind of like never meet your heroes, because we met our hero, our villain, our antagonist, and it's like, oh, you're just like a two-dimensional character with mommy and daddy issues like Loki, but like your solution is like just to ram and beat things up. What was your plan? Was your plan as simple as I was just going there to knock out the timekeepers? But then like you also have this very cool part of her where she could enchant people and use her manipulation skills. So I think it was just a weird place for the character because they want to hold on to like her true plan for another episode or so. That made me feel like I don't know how I feel about this character, because there was the build up, there was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% on board with the letdown yet, because obviously we're going to figure out what her plan is, and I think it's going to be more than skin deep of like I'm going to fight my way and kill people and just kill the TVA. That may be the plan of taking out the TVA, but the reasons behind it, I think, are going to be way more substantial. It's, it's going to be a big question, which we'll obviously talk about in a bit. But I think her plan and the reason she's not letting on to everything right now is obviously she's not going to trust a version of herself as she's the God of Mischief. Yep. He's the God of Mischief. Like, why would you trust him? And they kind of go back and forth, right? She's trying to get him to give her the power source stuff to get out of there. And he's like, really, you're going to do this? And there's this aspect of mystery still within her, which that has me intrigued. The mystery of like, okay, I know her plan is more than skin deep. I know there's more layers to this, but what is it? I just think the way it was plotted out in this episode was just a little awkward.
I agree that it's going to be more, but like for me, the payoff is not going to be, oh my God, this character is so much cooler. I feel like the payoff is like, oh, we're going to learn something about the TVA that we didn't know before. You know what I mean? So that's why for me, like this character,
it's more of what she knows than what she does kind of situation.
It's more about what she knows than who she is or what she does. Like you said it perfectly, which brings me to my next point. Sylvie was talking about like she was looking through the one captive's mind.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, before they were a TVA agent, I had to go back in there and try to like mess around and get that stuff. And Loki says, we're all thinking, wait a minute, we thought TVA agents were created for this, right? And she's
Yeah.
like, no, they're all variants just like us, but they don't remember that. Which brings me back to Mobius, right? Mobius has this love for jet skis. What if that's because before he was a variant, he was in the 90s and have a deep love for jet skis, became a variant. He doesn't remember anything, but that connection is still there. So does this mean her plan is to dismantle all of TVA by making all the workers realize that they had lives before and that these Time Lords just took them and corrupt them? Is that where this whole thing is going? Which is amazing, and I'm on board. I'm like, I want the ticket for that movie, but that means to me, I don't care so much about the female Loki. She's a means to the end on the bigger picture, which, it's a bittersweet thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility, right? And I think personally, like I have enough faith in Marvel at this point that I think they're going to throw us a curveball with Sylvie, and she's going to end up being a bigger piece of this puzzle with the TVA and with variants in general. And with this, I really hope it's not one of those like like my biggest fear for the end of this show, which there's only 3 episodes left, right?
Yeah,
Is
this is
that
the halfway point.
halfway point? So my fear for this show, which I hope doesn't happen, I don't think it will happen, but I fear that it's going to be one of those like societal, like kind of very basic issues of just like they're variants, but they're people too and deserve to have their lives lived the way they want.
That's definitely gonna happen.
It's like a kind of like a kumbaya thing that like doesn't make sense in the scheme of things because the character Loki is so obsessed with himself, and that was part of this episode too, where I'm like, is it weird if they fall in love with each other? But it makes sense because like the only person he really loves is himself anyway, right? It's Loki. So like, is that going to be like this thing that they're teasing, but they're technically different people and it's going to like, you know what I mean? So I don't know that form of the ending, but I do think it's interesting how Mobius has this belief. And he went through that explanation in the last episode where he's like, dude, you're from Asgard. You're from gods and mythology. That's weird. You think what I believe is weird, and kind of have your faith destroyed. And that to me is the better societal one, right? Where it's like your faith in something is completely shattered, and how do you pick yourself up from that, and how do you move forward after something you believed in so strongly is lying to you or different?
I could definitely see that being an angle that gets explored, and I could definitely see people in the TVA, if the TVA gets destroyed, we can see them back on Earth working for S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that. I could definitely see that being a theme that's continued out. But talk about Loki and love, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things about that. We see Loki expressing his past and like becoming true to himself that we knew towards the end, right? Like accepting his emotions. Essentially, like this was going through therapy for him, right? Like he's figuring himself out instead of this long journey of killing and being killed and almost dying to get where he is, which is good. It's good natural growth for him. So I think, we're going to see Loki grow, but just in a little different way. He's not going to be evil like we all thought he was going to be after this. The fact that they brought up the fact that like he's bisexual. Like he loved men, he loved women. He was a man, he was a woman. That whole gender fluid. I like that Marvel hit it and they moved on like it wasn't such a core thing. So my question to you, Loki and love, like loving himself and becoming a better person, and the creators of the show acknowledging the fact that he, loves men and women. What did you think of that revelation through this? Because I think that's an important topic that we should talk about.
Yeah. So to be honest, I watched the episode twice. The first time I missed it.
Oh, really?
It was so quick. Yeah, it didn't even register to me until I watched it again the same night, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, obviously. One, I mean, people of course are going to be mad. I mean, look at the world we live in.
Yeah.
But number two, like, read the comics. In the comics, this happens a bunch of times throughout history, and including way before the time we live in now, where Loki, was involved with men or like turned men down. There's an arc in Young Avengers where they delve into that. So this isn't something where it's like, as you were saying, people are saying it's shoehorned in or it's pandering or it's forced. That's something that's in the source material, everybody. So and number two, like obviously, right? It's a mythical god. Look at Greek mythology, look at the Greeks, look at the Romans. If you read your history, if you know your history, look at Zeus, look at all these characters. Or all the real historical facts of the Roman Empire was one of the gayest empires of all time.
Yeah.
That's just history. So people who don't want to believe that's your prerogative, but I don't think it affects the show in any way. And that's the point, right? It shouldn't affect the character. Correct. Or it shouldn't just, it shouldn't be, his personal preference is his personal preference. and we haven't even seen Loki in love with anyone. So I feel like the
No.
revelation, the more important thing is, oh, he has had past relationships in
Yes.
general, because this is a character who is very much a loner. He's very
Mm-hmm.
much like feels like the world's against him, and he is like the sole deity of this realm.
He feels like he can't love anything. It's just not just
Yeah,
romantic love, right? That whole scene is the bigger picture of him finding love. Like
exactly.
love is a dagger. Once you reach for it, it's gone. The romantic relationships he had was never real, wasn't anything substantial. And now I think, by the end of the show, he's going to learn to love himself. You know what I mean? So he can move forward. Because by the end of the Infinity War saga, if you will, he learned to love himself and loved his brother. That's why he sacrificed himself for Thanos, right? And
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a Loki by the end of this series who's going to learn to love himself so that way he can develop as a character and move forward. Is he going to be a good guy? Probably not. He's still going to be evil trickster doing good things and bad things, just like you would think a God of Mischief would be.
Yeah.
This leads me now, Chris, to the grandiose scheme, if you will. At the end of this series, right? There's all these time variants going on. There's this theory out there that I wanted to address real quick with you. Because of all these events that are going on, these Nexus level events, do you see in the future Loki teaming up, either it's with Sylvie or just Loki by himself, teaming up with Doctor Strange and Wanda, trying to deal with these Nexus level events? Because the TVA, let's say, possibly gets dissolved because everybody realized that they're variants. The timekeepers are missing, or they're just evil, and they need somebody to do it. And these three beings, these timekeepers, are really just Loki, Doctor Strange, and Wanda protecting time and making everything normal again. And then they just keep these fake figures here because these are the three people who actually fix time.
Interesting. I think there's a chance for Loki to be a part of this trio, so he doesn't get disintegrated, right? The whole point of this show, at the very, most basic form, is Loki is doing this so he doesn't die.
Yes.
So he doesn't get taken out because he is a variant. So I think there's a big chance if he can reveal, hey, like Sylvie is doing this the wrong way for the right reasons, let's kind of combine forces and figure out the TVA and what they're doing and if it's good or bad. That's case number one. Number two, I don't think everything she did where she sent all those like explosions through time and made all those manipulations happen, there's no way all those get solved by the end, and I think that sets up for season 2 and beyond.
Okay.
With Loki's usefulness.
A season 2 of this show, or is this another limited?
So this isn't confirmed 100%, but Kevin Feige did say out of all the shows, Loki is the one that would have the longevity of other seasons added onto it because it has the most manipulation with the overall MCU.
Okay.
So I do think there's definitely going to be a season 2 and 3. I would love to see Loki in Doctor Strange 2. It seems like, we know Wanda's going to be in it. I don't think Wanda and Doctor Strange are going to be on the level of timekeepers because they're so integral for the main storyline right now.
No, I don't think they're going to get taken away from the main storyline. I think people at the new TVA are going to assume that they are timekeepers because they fixed everything. And they're going to put up a facade of like, hey, no, we're just this Kang-looking guy.
Unless there's variants of them too. You know what I mean? There's
maybe.
variants of those characters as well. And Sorcerer Supreme could be somewhere else where it's like the old Sorcerer Supreme. That could be a timekeeper. But yeah, like if it's Kang, that would be awesome because it gets Kang into the universe before Ant-Man and Wasp, and maybe that connects that movie to this. But yeah, I think it's going to be a big situation. I think what they have to figure out first, though, is the timekeepers. Like, who are they?
Yeah.
What are their motives? What's real? What's not? What's a lie and what's truth? And I think that's going to kind of be the end of this main season right now.
Guys, that is our review and reaction for Loki Episode 3, Lamentis. Let us know down in the comments below what you thought of this episode and what you think is going to be the future of the TVA and for this female Loki.
And guys, thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, really helps the channel out a lot. If you're brand new, subscribe and turn on those notifications. You don't want to miss any more of our Loki content. Easter eggs are coming out next. And of course, every week we're hitting Loki and anything marvelous to throw at us. Make sure to check us out on our social medias at Jersey Comic Crew on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, I am Chris Heller. That's Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we'll see you next time.